Oh yeah, that export brace looks fantastic. We should have done this sooner. What's up guys, my name is Andy. In this video, we're gonna upgrade the factory tower braces or cowl braces to the export brace. This is probably one of the most popular mods for stiffening up the chassis on these classic Mustangs. And this is one of those bars that, you know, I really shouldn't have waited as long as I did to get to it because this is something that everybody should have in their car. You probably know on our cars already that these bars, while they do help a little bit, they're just not quite as good as this bar. And so we're gonna get those out of there and get this one installed. One of the nice things about doing this modification is essentially it's just a bolt-on setup. We're just gonna go ahead and unbolt these cowl braces off of here, and then we'll bolt the new one. We'll utilize the holes up there, and then we're gonna utilize the mounting holes for the shock towers here. We're gonna use those holes for the other part of the brace. A lot of you guys may already have this Monte Carlo brace in place, and it is a big improvement, it does help, but we're gonna wanna get that export brace up inside there. I also have a piece that we're gonna put in the back here that we're gonna sandwich in between the export brace and that lip on the firewall to help strengthen that area. But before we do that, let's go ahead and start getting everything prepared. We're gonna jack the car up, take the pressure off of this so we can loosen these up and get these out of the way, take this out of this way, and then we're gonna take these cowl braces off. Now that the car is safely on jack stands, we can start removing these shock towers and the cowl bracing. All right, everything is disassembled here, and I went ahead and also loosened the bolts on the Monte Carlo bar, took these out and loosened those up there, same thing on this side, to let this engine bay kind of settle and spread out as much as I can. We're gonna go ahead and test the export brace now and see how it lines up with these bolts here on either side of the shock tower. I went ahead and put these bolts in the back of the brace so I could just use it kind of as an alignment dowel as I set this in there and make sure it sits in the right place. All right, so I went ahead and set it down. It's lining up on all the bolts on this side over here, but on this side, they're not even close. Everything's kind of shifted over. If I pick this up and kind of swing this over a little bit, it sits on top of the bolts over on this side, and it's sitting on top of the bolts there. So that tells me that the engine bay, if I were to push it outwards or push these shock towers out, the bar would, or the brace would drop down on those bolts. So you can see how it's just sitting on top of the bolts, and if it was just a little bit more over to the side, it would drop right down. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just take this off for now, and we're gonna let this car just sit like this for a day. I've got some time here, I'm not in a big hurry, so we can go ahead and let this car just settle and see if those shock towers will separate for us and kind of spread out and make this bar fit a little, or make this brace fit a little better. Another thing I want to do before I secure the export brace to this rail up here is I want to beef this up a little bit, and what I want to do is I want to add a piece of angle underneath here that allow me to sandwich, you know, the export brace, then this lip on the firewall, and then the piece of angle underneath, and kind of create a stronger place for the load to be distributed a little better over than just forcing it to go on this firewall lip. What I've got is a piece of angle that just have it in my shop. I think this is gonna be long enough here. Well, if we sit it on top, the holes are right here and right there. If I move this, there we go. Now it's close, it's long enough, I can use this. So I've got 2 holes here and 2 holes there. So I can drill holes in here, and what I'll do is this piece will just sandwich underneath like so, and then I'll have the export brace on top, this below, and when I put the bolts in, it'll crush everything together and kind of create a little bit better support on this piece of frame rail. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna clamp this to here, and I'm just gonna use a Sharpie and just transfer the holes where they are in here onto the back of this, and then I can take this over and drill holes in it. There, now we know where those holes need to go, and so boom, just like that, now we've got holes in it. Okay, so what you want to use for this is, yeah, safety glasses, but also I use one of those unibit drill bit things, and then you just step up the holes you drill through. And the nice thing is the next drill bit size on that unibit was enough to kind of put a little bit of a chamfer on here just to kind of clean up those holes. So now this is ready to be put in here, and I think we can go ahead and start, we can try to put that export brace on here and see if it fits now. And we'll start with one side first, and just kind of push this on there, everything's good there. And then we'll go the other side and kind of finagle it around and see if we can get this side to line up. You just push on the fasteners a little bit, and there, that's on. That side's on, this side's on. And what I'll do with these is I'll just take one of these out at a time. Well, we'll put that brace underneath there, then we'll take those out and start putting those fasteners up top. Okay, so these fasteners that came with it are not long enough, so we're gonna have to get some longer ones for that. All right, now that we're done putting in those bolts, we can go ahead and put the shock tower caps and the shocks back in on each side. All right, guys, that's it. That is an export brace in the car. If you guys have the Monte Carlo bar and you loosen it up, don't forget to tighten it back up when you put everything in there. And also when you put your wheels back on, if you took them off to take those shocks out, don't forget to retort those lugs. So This is one of the easiest things that you can do to your car, adding this brace. In fact, you know, I let this car sit overnight, as I had mentioned earlier, and you know, when I went to fit it, I was able to get that to drop over the bolts there on the shock towers, and I didn't have to push the towers apart. I was not wanting to do that. The reason why you do that, well, what happens is if you push those towers apart, it's actually going to push your fenders apart, and then the gap between your hood and your fender is going to get wider. The only way to fix that is to loosen these bolts up and readjust your fender, and not everybody wants to do that. One of the options you can do is drill the holes in the export brace just a little bit larger so they just drop over that, but in this case I didn't have to worry about that. That may not be the best advice, guys, is drilling those holes, but it keeps you from having to readjust your fenders if you don't want to do that. And you know, also those bolts that I had to add up top up there, I probably can go back and put the stock bolts in now that I sandwiched that thing down and kind of soaked everything up. There may be, you know, the bolts may be long enough now to go there, so I might do that later, but these work for now. Those are just 3/8 bolts, I think 3/8 16 pitch, like 1.25 inches long is what I had, so I just threw those in there and that works for now. One more thing, the remnants from the cowl bracing that's on there, I thought about cutting those off. You can drill out the spot welds and get those off there that way. You can just cut off these pieces here below. They don't serve any purpose now that we got the export brace. They're in the way, but they're not. I mean, like they're below the brace, so they don't hurt anything. They're not really touching anything. I may cut those off when I come back in here. If I ever do need some, you know, work on the engine bay and start removing stuff, I may go back and get those out of there. But for now, I don't have a spot weld drill bit thing, and that's probably one of the best ways to do that, is getting those off there that way. So anyways, all right guys, that's it. I think you guys can do this. If I can do it, you can do it for sure. If you guys like the video, give me a thumbs up. And if you subscribe, I appreciate it because it helps my channel out, and we'll see you in the next one.